At the end of the day, there's only one thing television companies care about, and that's ratings. Cartoons can't effectively sell commercial time, or in some cases be commercial time, if nobody watches. Now, sometimes they try to attract viewers by creating quality shows with original ideas and really seeking to stand out from the crowd. And sometimes they just shove a bunch of popular ideas together and jam it in a time slot. That's why a lot of shows contain dinosaurs, guns, ninjas, giant machines, and explosions. Those are practically the passcodes to the young male mind. Slap a couple of characters and a hastily made plot into that, and you have a show. That's also why there have been numerous cartoons attempting to capitalize on action stars, despite the fact that it's a stupid idea that almost never works. Think about it. Action stars are great because they pull off impossible stunts, win over impossible odds, and kick impossible amounts of ass. But cartoons are a medium of the impossible. Things that are amazing in live action are trivial to draw. So the bread and butter of the action star just doesn't stand out. What does Michael Jordan have when everyone can jump that high? Who is Chuck Norris when he's not kicking more ass than anyone else in existence? And what's left for Jackie Chan when his insane stunts are commonplace?
Well, his acrobatic bumbling and his comic relief, of course.
Exactly. And comedy will always have a place in cartoons, which is why just this once we had an action star cartoon that actually worked.
Hey, can I borrow some sugar?
And thus we come to Jackie Chan Adventures. Now, don't get me wrong. They couldn't just shove Jackie Chan in a cartoon and expect gold to come out the other end. They did need a plot. But really, that's as simple as casting him as an out-of-his-depth investigator, giving him an adorable niece to sneak around behind his back and help him out, and crafting a shadowy organization that wants to rule the world for him to fight against. So really, it's as simple as stealing the plot to Inspector Gadget.
What are you talking about? Jackie isn't a cyborg or an idiot. Jade causes as much trouble as she solves. The world is full of magic, and you haven't even begun to talk about Uncle or Toru.
You can't let me have even one joke, can you?
Are you going to give me the sugar or not?
It's not even like the addition of a crotchety old man and a big slow ox, or even that original. I wasn't kidding earlier when I said this show should have failed. We're talking about the brainchild of John Rogers, the man responsible for penning both Catwoman and The Core, movies that have reduced hardened film critics into inconsolable weeping. In fairness, he also created Leverage, so it's not like everything the man touches turns to weapons-grade stupid. But it is abundantly clear that they spared no expense staying in the box at every turn on this one. Every season is a collect the Triforce type story, with an evil villain to stop, a MacGuffin to find, and a bunch of henchmen to serve as enemies and foils. The same henchmen, in fact, for 4 of the 5 seasons. And while each season does have its own story arc, and the characters, especially Jade, can and do remember previous events and powers, it's difficult to credit the show with an actually advancing storyline. Each seasonal arc is self-contained and really has only cosmetic effects on the others. For instance, Season 1 revolves around collecting the magic talismans that empower a dragon sorcerer called Shendu, who is trapped in the form of a statue. And while Shendu is still around in the 2nd season, the plot revolves around him trying to free his brothers and sisters from the abyss. And
talismans are not important!
Season 3 returns to the subject of the talismans, but all mention of them being the embodiment of a dragon sorcerer's powers is gone. And that's just the plot. You can forget about character development in this one.
But what about Toru leaving the Dark Hand and joining Jackie?
Nigh instantaneous heel face turns do not count as advancement.
I am told Section 13 serves donuts on Thursdays.
And what about Captain Black accepting the existence of magic?
Neither does shifting from one running gag to another.
I didn't believe it either, sir, until yes, I feel fine.
True character development involves finding out more about the characters, or seeing them change in response to events, neither of which happens here. The characters remain little more than their basic stereotypes.
Never mock the cookie.
With loving care and attention to detail, the creators of this show sought out every place where it could be original, every place where it could stand out, and replaced it with dull, generic, stereotypical tropes. Adorable, trouble-seeking sidekick, check. Crotchety old magician character, check. Cliché henchman, check. Catchphrases,
Angry crow takes flight.
One more thing.
check, check, check. The animation is gimmicky and uses impossibly fast motions to speed through difficult scenes. The opening intro is mundane. The end credits theme is one of the worst I have ever heard.
He would rather laugh than fight. It's wrong or right. You gotta like him. Jackie Chan.
If someone wrote something like that for Barney, he'd be fired. Chan doesn't even voice himself. The only time he even appears for real is in the question and answer session at the end. Even the title is bereft of effort. It's a blatant ploy to say, hey, we have Jackie Chan. Does anything else even matter? Everywhere you turn, there are signs that they just didn't take this seriously. And yet, there is something about this show that is fantastic. In the same way that old 80s movies are gloriously cliched, it doesn't matter that the characters are caricatures, or the plots are predictable, or the second season is mostly filler. This show is fun. Perhaps it's just that tropes are tropes for a reason. Perhaps it's that that level of awesome can only be achieved by not giving a crap. Or perhaps it's Chan himself. The problem with analyzing cartoon shows is that it's often very difficult to figure out who's responsible for what. For instance, the title of executive producer is often handed out like condoms at a Viagra convention. So the fact that Jackie Chan is listed as one, listed as an executive producer, I'm not going to call a man who could kick my ass 7 times over a condom, thank you very much, really could mean nothing. But I don't think so. Likewise, his film producers, Willie Chan and Solomon So, could be co-listed as executive producer because of their affiliation with Chan. Could be. Despite appearance, tradition, and understanding, Chan actually seemed to take a real interest in this show. He didn't just lend his name to the production, he also helped shape the rest of the characters. Allegedly, Jade is based on a number of his nieces, Toru is based on a member of his stunt team, and Uncle is based on a conglomeration of his father and his agent. If true, that explains why these walking, talking stereotypes that are the main characters seem to leap right off the screen. Like the Soup Nazi, like Richard Faulty, they have a life of their own because they literally have a life of their own.
One more thing.
The presence of his film producers suggests that there was a vested interest in getting the feel of this show right, and it shows. The action is undeniably Chan. This is not a show about a towering, omnipotent titan, but about a hero who is constantly outclassed in using creativity and crazy stunts to win the day. The enemies still learn to fear him, of course, but it's because they haven't managed to beat him, not because they can't. And that's important. You only have to look at a page of Chuck Norris jokes to realize how action stars can become larger than life. And while that kind of grandiosity is great for schoolyard, and let's face it, office water cooler conversations, it's not the kind of action you want to come back to week after week after week. We know Chuck Norris will win, and we know he will win by being awesome. We know Jackie Chan will win too, but we don't know how. And that keeps us interested, even through the up-teen episodes of filler in the second season.
One more thing.
Okay, before when I said the animations were gimmicky, I was being misleading. It's true that certain motions are too fast, but they're also fluid, and they're used to accentuate the awesomeness of the action involved. So really, they're an evolution of the animation, rather than a hack attempt to cover up lack of talent.
But it does mean that Jackie Chan isn't doing his own stunts.
Not necessarily.
No, Homer. Very few cartoons are broadcast live. It's a terrible strain on the animator's wrist.
Prove me wrong.
I also have to say, I really like the lower detail, out-of-the-line style of the background. It's a great way of giving the world presence without detracting from the action.
One more thing!
Okay, the show ran for 5 seasons and was entertaining for at least 3 of them. It really started to stale in the 4th and 5th season, and while they did try to breathe some new ideas into it, making the 4th season about Japanese oni masks and eliminating the enforcers in the 5th season, all that really did was underscore how stale the show was becoming. Nevertheless, despite the incredible odds against it, this show did become a classic, proving once again that tropes are tropes for a reason, and that even the cheesiest schlock can become a thing of awesome and a joy forever.
One more thing!
I should never have written that gag. This has been a Wasted Years cartoon review. Join me next time.
Ahem.
What do you even want with sugar anyways?
It's to feed the Mogwai.
It's 11:30 in the morning.
Which is still after midnight.
Until next time, I'm Ramnesis.
And I'm Albatross.
Signing off.